Hello, welcome to this video on Dhammapada, chapter 5, verse 11, verse 70 of the consecutive numbering. I will call up the analysed text. Here we are. Mase mase kusaggena balu bhunjetha bhojanam nasu sankata dhammanam kalam ughati solasim. Mase mase kusaggena balu bhunjetha bhojanam nasu sankata dhammanam kalamaghati solasim. First thing, we correct this subdotted M to a full consonantal M, followed by a vowel. Here we are. Masa, a month. Oops. Mase, in a month, locative. Repeat it, mase, mase. Literally in month, in month. It's the in English, we would say month in, month out, month after month after month. Mase, mase. Balu, the fool, bhunjeta bhojanam. Bhunjeta is the optative. If it were the ordinary present indicative making a statement, it would be bhunjati. Bhunjeta. This is the optative, having the idea of might eat, the fool might eat, even if the fool eats. This optative is often used when you're making a generalized statement. You're not making a particular statement about a particular person doing a particular thing or a particular statement about an event having occurred. Just making a broad generalization. If any fool that may be just eats off the tip of kusha grass, mase mase, month in, month out. That's the meaning of the optative here. Now the root, let me get back to iPad screen. There we are. The root bhuj means to eat. It is a class 1 verb in Sanskrit. But with an inserted nasal. That makes bhunjati. Right. And that's exactly what we see in the Pali. Bhunjati and the optative bhunjeta. I should mention that bhuj in Sanskrit, it is much more commonly a class 7 Atmanepada, but which means bhunkte. But that's by far the more common form in Sanskrit, not bhunjati, which is a rarer form. But I won't detain us here on the complexities of Sanskrit grammar. Not necessary for the understanding of bhunjati in Pali. We just accept for these purposes that the Pali form of the word bhunjati comes from the less common class 1 Sanskrit verb, and rather from the form of the verb as a class 1, which is rarer in Sanskrit. You will often find that happening actually in Pali, that where you get the slightly more complex forms in Sanskrit, it's often simplified in Pali. For example, in Sanskrit you can have bhunkte, bhunjate, bhunakti, and so on, different forms because of the complexity of the grammar. One of the permissible but less common forms is bhunjati, and Pali has a tendency to take the simpler and more common form, and establish that as its regular. So that's why we have Bhunjati as the most common form in Pali, whereas it is not the most common form in Sanskrit. So mase mase, month in, month out, balu bhunjeta bhojanam. The bal of the food might bhunjeta might eat bhojanam. It's from the same root, bhuj, bhunjati to eat, bhojana, the eating, therefore the food. Kusage, this kusa, in Sanskrit kusha, Pali kusa. Traditionally, the yogis will sit on a mat or just spread out kusha grass. Agra means a tip, like the pointed tip of something. In Pali, of course, becomes agga. Also means, the sharp point where things converge, the agra. So in Sanskrit, it would be kushagra. The kusha agra becomes kushagra. It would become kusagga in Pali, but Pali doesn't like a long vowel before a doubled consonant. Sometimes happens, but mostly not. So we get kusagga, kusha tip. Because kusha actually is like a blade with a sharp tip. It's long and thin, it's kusha grass. And so part of his austerity might be eating his food tiny, tiny amounts, minuscule amounts that you can just get onto the end of a bit of a sharp-tipped blade of kusha grass, and that's how he eats. So the basic idea is that even if he's eating tiny amounts, month in, month out, naso sankata dhammanam kalam aghati solasim. So even if the fool eats month in, month out, eats his food with the kusha grass tip. By the way, on this word agga, we know if you're one-pointed, the one-pointed mind, in Sanskrit, eka plus agra, this now makes a compound adjective, one-pointed, having one point. And in Sanskrit, it's ekagra. In Pali, it becomes ekagga. Used in meditation, the one-pointedness of mind, the focus of the mind, one point. See? And you can make an abstract noun of it, ekagrata, and in Pali, ekaggata, which is one-pointedness, that is the one-pointedness of mind focused on a single point. So the second half of this verse, naso sankatatammanam kalamaghati solasim. Naso, not he will not. It's an emphatic way of putting it. Naso aghati, will be worth. Sorry, I had to pause there. Not absolutely sure where I was. We were at naso sankata dhammanam kalamaghati solasim. Now the verb aghati is to be worth. We've got two related roots. I'll write them in Sanskrit, is ar and arg. Now, it is highly probable that they were the same root in primitive times. I mean, primitive times before they split into what we can see as two roots. And they both have broadly the same meaning. It means to be worthy. The idea of capability, worthiness, value, valor. In Sanskrit, this root, the ar is much more common. The root arg now tends to be specialized simply to be worth, as in money worth, or as in this verse, this fool isn't worth 1/16th part of those who have perfected the doctrine. Whereas ar is much more worthy, and it arhati, arhant, a worthy one, and an arahant in Pali, arahant in Sanskrit, ara and a comes in Pali, arahant. The arg actually has, with various phonetic mutations, filtered through into English as worth. It's originally that same word. Much more obviously, it has come into Greek with the root arch, which now meaning chief, first or chief. In fact, the Greek word pronounced in modern Greek archi, meaning a beginning, and then by extension somebody beginning, the front, the start, somebody who's put in front, therefore the chief. And so a Greek archon is a chief. A patriarchy is whereas the old men are the other chiefs. The architect means a chief builder. Sometimes it's pronounced arch, like archbishop, a bit arch or arch in English, depending on when and how it came into our language more directly or via French. So archbishop, for example, means chief bishop. So that is that same root for arg, arahant, worth, that we see much more closely related to the original root in Greek, and then the words that we have in English via Greek. So in this verse here, we see aghati, which is the now less used branch of this root. So arghati, Sanskrit aghati, meaning simply is worth. So naso noti sankata dhamanam kalam aghati solasim. Kalam, kala, means a part, but more specifically a subdivided part. You talk about the subdivided parts of the moon. You've got your quarter moon, eighth moon, and so on. These are called the kala of the moon. Do distinguish it carefully from an entirely different word, which is kala, which is time. We have this dhammo akaliko, often translated as timeless, but it means you don't have to wait to get the fruits. So akaliko. So solasim, that's just the 16th. The cardinal, the numeral 16 is solasa. It's from it would be shad dasha, 10-6, become in Pali solasa. And then the ordinal, you can either use solasama, or you can use the same solasa, which is a cardinal, just the number 16. It can also be used as an adjective, 16th. So from solasa as an adjective, it makes its feminine solasi, 16th. So na aghati, he is not worth, solasim kalam, a 16th part, which is an idiomatic way of saying he's only worth, not saying he's totally worthless, but what he's done, the worthy acts he's done, eating month in, month out, off the tip of a blade of kusha grass, that is worth only a tiny part, or not even a tiny, so not even a tiny part of those who have completed the doctrine. Sankata Dhammanam. So Sankata in Sanskrit, kya means to count. It's the basic meaning, to count out. For example, and it changes its meaning slightly with the a, because the meaning with an akya, it means to speak forth or to proclaim. Have suwa and become akka in Pali. So swakato bhagavata. Dhammo. This Dhammo is swakato bhagavata, well proclaimed. Bhagavato, Bhagavata, by the Blessed One. That's the instrumental singular of the consonant declension, like manasa chepadukena, swakato bhagavata. So if you put the prefix sam in front of kya, that has the meaning of reckoning up. Kya, just to count. Sankhya, like to complete the counting, reckon up, to do the calculation. But then by extension, Sankhya, by extension, it means to complete anything. Complete the count, just you've completed doing it. So and passive participle, Sankhyata, in Pali, in Sanskrit rather, and in Pali, it's the same, but with the yet dropped out, so it's Sankata. So if you're Sankata Dhamma, that is a possessive compound, a bahuvrihi, or in Pali bahubhi compound, meaning one by whom the Dhamma has been perfected. Sankata Dhamma. It's not the noun Dhamma qualified by the adjective Sankata, a completed Dhamma. No, it could mean that in another context. You can't tell from the shape of the compound which one it is. Usually you can't. But you tell by context. So here, Sankata Dhamma is one by whom the Dhamma is Sankata. And it's in the genitive plural, Sankata Dhammanam, of those who have perfected the Dhamma. It's the genitive plural because it's kalam, a part. Na agati kalam, he is not worth a part. Na agati solasim kalam, he is not worth a 16th part. Na agati solasim kalam Sankata Dhammanam, he is not worth a 16th part of those who have completed the Dhamma. So I will read this for you once more. Let me call up the typewritten text for you. Sorry, calling up the wrong thing. There we are. Mase kusagena balo bunjeta bhojanam naso Sankata Dhammanam kalamaghati solasim. And once more. Mase kusagena balo bunjeta bhojanam naso Sankata Dhammanam kalamaghati solasim. And that's it on chapter 5, verse 11.